Obvious warning, there will be spoilers for the new season of Barry, as well as the previous seasons of Barry. So, Barry Season 4. The final season of SNL alum Bill Hader's HBO show. I mean, speaking of HBO, with the most recent season of Succession starting a couple weeks ago, I figured it would be a good time to address HBO premieres can be a little weird, especially with this show. You've got Season 1, which is obviously the pilot. Then in Season 2, Barry has kind of stopped killing. In fact, he doesn't kill in that entire season until the very end. So it's a bit of a stranger vibe. Then in Season 3, the very opening scene, he kills 2 people. And in Season 4, Barry is in jail. So, of course, there tend to be some stranger premieres with this show, where it takes a couple episodes to get into it, but I figured for right now, I'll just tackle the first episode of Season 4. It almost feels like the obvious thing to talk about first is, yes, Barry is in jail, and it kind of immediately shows you it's hard to do things with a character while they are in prison, and so we get Barry's hallucinations. We have a couple, the first one being the return to episode 1, which was teased in, of course, the trailer. And this shows Barry thinking back to the first episode in which he met Sally, his now ex-girlfriend, and Kusno, his acting teacher. And it's a very interesting moment that I kind of love because at first it's framed in a way where it seems almost pointless, but then when Fuchs being Fuchs, if you know who he is, steps into the way. As we know, Fuchs has been stepping in the way of Barry's dreams for basically the entire show, so it's pretty fun to see it played out in a very literal way. When it comes to Barry's second hallucination, it is actually worth explaining who Fuchs is. If Barry is Macbeth, Fuchs is Lady Macbeth. He gives Barry instructions on the people who he needs to kill. And they have a family-friend relationship, as Barry's dad, who is almost never mentioned in the show, was once friends with Fuchs. And so we have this interesting relationship that has to be built off of. And at the end, we get to see Barry's father for the first time. Or, we don't, because we never actually get to see his face. The show is really hammering in that this guy is not important, but we kind of get the idea that while Barry is in prison and not being able to do much, we're probably going to get more of these hallucinations and more looks into Barry's past, which I can see. I enjoy. I don't love hallucinations or backstories, but if the show does it right, I'll take it. With Barry off doing whatever he's doing in prison, there's a lot of other characters to talk about. First of all, I want to quickly mention Albert and Jim Moss, 2 characters who became important in the last season. In this episode and the second episode, which I have seen, they don't really seem to be important. Albert doesn't even show up at all, and it does make me wonder if they're meant to be one-off characters or if they will return. I don't really see why Albert would return, but I can see how he could. Now, with those 2 out of the way, it does seem like we should mention Sally. Sally is Barry's previously mentioned ex-girlfriend, and at the end of Season 3, in the finale, she decides to leave to Joplin after experiencing some traumatic events. And now that Barry has been imprisoned and Sally is aware of this, it does seem like they're backpedaling on that plot, which is something that I'm pretty much fine with. We get to meet Sally's family, and to be honest, they're not exactly something I'm very interested in, so it's alright with me that we're just leaving this plot behind, even if it feels a little rushed. In general, it makes sense to me that Sally would immediately abandon her plans as soon as her boyfriend is arrested for mass murder, if things get as bad as they could. After that, there's obviously Gene Cousineau, the acting teacher who helped arrest Barry. Gene is going down an interesting route as a character, as at the end of the episode it is made clear that he is going to go to a Vanity Fair reporter and try to get the story published, sort of. Similar to the story that was published in Season 3 that managed to be extremely viral. This is pretty much the most obvious wrong choice Gene has made in a long time, and so it's kind of hard to watch, but it seems that the show is basically telling us if the show's not over, he's not perfect. And he's going to make quite a few mistakes, so we get to watch them, and they're pretty funny. And to finish off the main characters, there's fan favorites Hank and Cristobal. And I'm going to be honest, it's kind of hard to cover these guys. In episode 1, at least, they don't really do anything. I saw that story saying that Bill Hader wanted to make their whole plot this season basically just them going around and being cute, and then the writer said, what does that have to do with anything? And it seems like he wanted to just do that in the first episode, and then move on from there later. There is a dark moment in this story where it's pretty heavily implied that Hank has trauma from season 3's finale, which, if you've seen the episode, fucking obviously, but it's not really gone into much further. With all the characters out of the way, some of my general thoughts have to do with the directing. Bill Hader is directing every single episode this season, which means he aims to impress, and so far, yeah, he has. The hallucination scenes that I was talking about are pretty much an evolution of the season 1 dream sequences, and I was never a fan of those. I always thought that they were pretty out of place and strange, but here he manages to make them fit really, really well, and be a lot more experimental, which is something he's pretty clearly trying to do. There's a scene in episode 2, which, like I said, I have seen, in which we get to see Prison Barry watching his dream wedding with Sally, and it is so much more interesting than those season 1 dream sequences, and it's all due to the directing. That's all I'll say. That's about all I got to say about Yikes. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was good. But I am looking to get more into the vibe of season 4 and understand it fully as the season's plot actually gets going. It has clearly not gotten going in the first scene. Barry is still kind of just moping around in prison, but I don't mind. I'll see where it goes, and I'll have fun, I'm sure. If it gets really good, I might even check in for another one of these. But for now, we'll have to see. Thank you, and bye.